And we're live. Just going to, as per usual, give it a few minutes of just me rambling so that we have a chance for people to tune in. There we go. Here's some folks. Hi, welcome. So, welcome to another installment of Geek Speaks Greek or Greekery Speakery or any of the many different names I've come up with this. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Boy, it is a terrible, cold, rainy, stormy day here in New York City. I don't know where the rest of you all are from. I hope it's someplace nicer. Because, man, today is like a stone cold bummer, I gotta say. Although I think it's probably, a little bit of spoilers, it's probably going to be kind of appropriate for the deity we're going to cover today. Let's see. Just want to remind you all, I want to fix that screen a little bit. This is the first day of the new schedule. Since this crisis has began, I have been doing Geek Speaks Greek every day, Monday through Friday, or sometimes I would miss a day but do it on Saturday. There was different things going on. The new schedule going forward is going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And this week I went with a theme for what I was going to be doing. We're going to be doing goddesses that actually it is all goddesses. Yeah, it's all goddesses. Goddesses that actually haven't made it into my Olympians books yet, for whatever reason. Be it that maybe they're not heavily represented in myth, or I just never got to stories that they're really told in. This is the episode where we're going to kind of do some on-air designing of these characters. So you're going to join me as I will create the official Olympians appearance, the Olympians being my series, of what these deities look like. But before we get to that, I kind of want to share a few pictures that I got from last time of some of the art. If you were here last week on Friday, you know that we did the Bull of Minos, the Minotaur. Monster episodes have proven to be very popular, so we'll probably be doing more of those in the future. This is a great drawing from Braden of the Minotaur. He's in the labyrinth. You can see a little poking out. Look, there's so many great things about this. I'm going to talk about this for a second, okay? Look at the cast shadow. That's super cool. There's the labyrinth where we see little hints of stuff. There's like a sword and I guess that's a dead guy because he's got X's on it. So I guess the sword is probably Theseus. And the Minotaur himself looks like he's holding some sort of axe or something. And it says, what you can't see because it's backwards, the misunderstood bull. Because if you were there, I made kind of a case of I don't think the Minotaur really eats people. He's a cow. Cows don't eat people unless they're weird cows. Also at the bottom, bonus baby Minotaur because I drew a baby Minotaur. Also that episode. Fun fact, my girlfriend was highly disturbed by that picture. She did not like the baby Minotaur. Oh, this is another solo episode, by the way. Super Assistant Nicole is not here, so my cats will undoubtedly be running rampant and making noise. Now, this is really funny. This is a drawing from Eleanor, and apparently Eleanor didn't like any of her drawings she did of the Minotaur, so instead she sent in this pretty awesome picture of Zeus with his lightning bolt. And I can relate to that, Eleanor. Actually, true story, when I'm drawing sometimes and I can't get something to work, I do tend to draw Zeus. He's like my go-to. I go to him to reset because I've drawn him so many times. I could probably draw Zeus with my eyes closed. Maybe we'll try that later. And let's do maybe 2 more drawings. How's that sound? This is a pretty cool drawing by Mashaya, who agreed with me in my assessment that it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Minotaur to eat people. That didn't stop her from giving him bloody horns. So, I guess he doesn't eat them, but he still just runs them through with his horns and throws them about and casts their bits all over the labyrinth. And what he's saying there, because it's backwards, is, Ariadne left me a string? Because, of course, Ariadne is Asterion. That's the Minotaur's real name. It's his sister. And he's maybe he finds the string. He's oh, this is a nice thing. And in this version, I guess he actually follows the string that she gave to Theseus to find his way out. And maybe that's how he meets Theseus and then he gets killed. So that's just kind of all sorts of tragic. But great drawing. And let's see. Let's do one more. One more ends up being multiple more. This one just came in. I hadn't looked at it yet. So here is a drawing of Asterion in the labyrinth. I like his loincloth. That's not a loincloth. That's a single... What is that thing called? It's what Andre the Giant wears. I like that he's got a little bit more clothes than I draw him. Here is the Minotaur baby. Oh, and know what's so cute about this? I had, in my book Poseidon, there's a little line where when Theseus comes out dragging the severed head of the Minotaur, and he's like, "Can you believe it, Ariadne? The creature scarcely put up a fight." That's a quote from Borgia. And Ariadne leans down and she closes his eyes gently and says, "When he was little, I used to put flower garlands in his horns." He's got flower garlands in his horns. Oh, it's so sad. And then this final one, this is like, check this out. This is like the fauvist version of the Minotaur. It's like all bright colors and just like, it's exciting. I love the energy of this. This is totally amazing. And those, I would say that is from, that's from Nora and Drake. They've contributed stuff before. They're like kind of regulars on the show. So everybody who sent a picture, thank you so much. Now, by my reckoning, it seems like there's about 90 people named Eleanor that watch this live cast. But one of the Eleanors, if you watch the comment section, is a particularly big fan of the goddess Nemesis. Almost every day when I get to the Q&A period, by the way, since this is a solo episode, hold your cues because nobody's here looking at them yet. Send your cues at the end when I ask for them. There's always like, tell us more about Nemesis. Tell us more about Nemesis. And I don't mean that to like mock them, but it's like, it's kind of, I feel bad that I've done so little with Nemesis. To the fact that Nemesis has not even appeared in Olympians. And that's what inspired this week, where I'm going to kind of talk about a goddess. I was going to say goddess or god, but I'm planning on doing all goddesses here. I'm going to talk about a goddess who hasn't had a chance to appear in the series Olympians yet. And then, using clues about who they are the goddess of, and stuff, any written hints I could find about them, I'm going to design live, while you're watching, what I think that goddess would look like in my series Olympians. So Nemesis. I almost threw it out for a rhetorical question, like, what can someone tell me about Nemesis? You guys are like, we can't hear you, we're at home. So Nemesis was, I think the easiest way to put it is she is the goddess of revenge. Clearly her name has come to us. A nemesis is a word that we use in English to this day. A nemesis is like your arch enemy. Like the Red Skull is Captain America's nemesis, or Lex Luthor is Superman's nemesis. It's a term we use. But the goddess, she was more about revenge. And I want to put a little bit more of a fine point on that. Not just typical. So, okay, I have to get into some history here. So she was originally, she's kind of her role that she figures is she's kind of there to keep you behaving. She's almost like the threat of retribution, which is revenge, and she's born out of resentment. And what I mean by resentment, it's kind of, I was thinking how to say this beforehand, and this is the way it came up with. Imagine like you're taking a test in school or something, right? And you see that there is another person who's cheating on that test. And you look at that and you're like, that person's going to get a better grade than me. And as you look, you see that the teacher doesn't notice that they are cheating. So it's this resentment that somebody is going to do something unfair or cheat or do something that's wrong and get away with it and reap the benefits. And that's something I think we can all say we relate to a lot. It happens in the world all the time. Unfortunately, sometimes good things happen to bad people. And a lot of times bad people do bad things and they don't have to pay for them. And sometimes good people pay for things, but I mean, it's all tricky. So Nemesis was this goddess. Her role would be like, say you saw that. You're an ancient Greek school child and you're like writing on your tablet and you look over and, Archerion or whoever is cheating and you're like, I hope someone notices that. You don't want to be someone who tells, you don't want to go over there and smash his tablet on the ground. You don't know what to do. So maybe you say a prayer to Nemesis. Because Nemesis's job is she kind of seeks out and sets these scales correct. She's often pictured, there's another goddess, Tyche, and she's like the goddess of like, almost like good fortune, good luck. And the two of them, you'll see them in vase paintings a lot. They'll be Nemesis and Tyche together. And you could almost think it's like Tyche is like when something good happens, and Nemesis is when something bad happens. They're almost kind of like karma, I guess, right? So it's very interesting The problem with Nemesis, and there's really no problem because she's actually a pretty cool concept, is she doesn't figure into mythology very much. And I'm not really sure why. Well, actually, I am pretty sure why. I'll tell you why. So, a little bit of background. She is, unlike the vast majority of characters we end up discussing on this live cast, she's not related to Zeus, at least not very closely. She is the daughter of Nyx, who is night. If you don't know who Nyx is, it's okay. She's only appeared in Olympians so far in family trees. That's it, right? She hasn't actually made an appearance, and that's why Wednesday's episode is going to be me designing Nyx. So she was the goddess of night, the embodiment of the night. She's a very interesting character. There's I found one writing where it says even Zeus was kind of afraid of her, so maybe Zeus is scared of the dark. I don't know. So she comes from this alternate thread of family, not really related to the Olympians at all. Nemesis, not Nyx. And then, so here's why I think she doesn't appear much. So I could only find a few myths that she really appears in. And one of the myths is one I even made a tiny little cameo of in Olympians, but I kind of left her out because, so have you all heard the story of Narcissus? Narcissus was this youth who was so beautiful. He was one of the most gorgeous men who ever existed. And he was kind of a jerk about it. He was just like the sort of thing that Nemesis would get involved in, right? He would be a jerk, and no one ever made him pay. And somebody who had fallen in love with him, it's different people in different cases, but the most familiar version and the version from the story I'm telling is the nymph Echo, which is a whole other story. I have to do a Narcissus and Echo one of these days. Echo falls in love with him, and he turns her away cruelly. He's like, oh, look how beautiful I am. You're just merely okay, whatever. So he's a jerk, and she's really sad, and she wants to see him pay in some way. So she prays. She prays to Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And this is why I feel like Nemesis doesn't get as much respect, because Nemesis almost acts like she is an in-between. Nemesis, so Aphrodite, things of love is definitely Aphrodite's territory, or her son Eros. But because Nemesis acts as this kind of go-between in here, she makes, in this one version at least, she makes Narcissus fall in love with himself. He comes up, he's like, boy, it's not easy getting your skin so beautiful. So he goes to this nice clear pond, and he's splashing cold water in his face to make his pores all tight and everything. And he looks in the water and he sees this face. He's like, that guy, And he's like, he sees this person, and it's like his perfect lips, his perfect eyebrows, his long hair, everything. He's the most gorgeous person he's ever seen. And he falls in love. And he spends, it's him, it's his reflection. He spends the rest of his life just staring at himself in this reflection because Nemesis did this to him. Now, I have you know what? I'm going to run off camera for 1 second. Now, this is incredibly professional, but I left my book over there. I'll be right back. Did you miss me? Okay. So I actually have a 1-panel cameo of this story in my book, Aphrodite. And like I said, because Nemesis acts as the kind of go-between, I only had 1 panel to tell this. It wasn't a super vitally important story of Aphrodite. It's kind of a really well-known story. It would be a good one for me to tell if I ever do that series, when I do that series, not if I ever. Of other Greek myths, I would definitely want to tell the stories of Echo and Narcissus. So right here, bottom panel, there's Narcissus looking at his reflection. And there's Aphrodite, kind of blowing him a kiss like, have fun loving yourself for the rest of your life. He doesn't have long hair. I thought I drew him with long hair. So that's one of her best known stories. Really, the only other mythological thing I could find with Nemesis, there is a story. It's from one of my favorites. If you've read my Hades book, you know I took a lot of Hades from the writings of this one guy, Callimachus. And Callimachus, in his hymn to Demeter, he wrote an instance where Demeter was aggrieved again, and she went to seek revenge. And in this instance, Nemesis is accompanying Demeter, but she's not even the one that takes revenge. Demeter does herself, full on by herself. Demeter's almost Nemesis is almost like a court stenographer. She's writing notes. She's like, yes, this person was bad. Yes, yes. So one of those characters, that just didn't appear much in myth. But much like the same way with like Hestia, a super important character who in religion and in people's lives, who people would pray to, just doesn't appear much in stories. And I think it's probably the same reason. I said Hestia doesn't appear much because they don't want to make her look bad. I bet you that the reason that Nemesis doesn't appear much is because you really don't want the goddess whose job is to take messy revenge mad at you. So maybe just avoid mentioning her altogether. Be like, we all know what Nemesis does. We're cool with it. And just like, please don't ever pay attention to his Nemesis. Oh, gods, please. So that's my theory. Now, let's start designing Nemesis, okay? Now, it occurs to me, probably should have drawn Nyx first, so we would have had that to work off of. We could have brought in some familial resemblance. But that's okay. I have some ideas what I'm going to do. So Nemesis is a daughter of Nyx. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm probably going to draw more than one picture here. Let's start let's do a face first so we can kind of feel her personality a little bit. And then I want to draw a full body because she has some cool stuff going on that I can draw there. So I feel like she's going to have a little bit of anger in her face. And I don't know really, I can't decide. I was thinking of this. Is she actually angry or is it just a mask she wears to scare people? Not like a literal mask, but does she just look ferocious? So I decided what I'm going to do. Pretty arch eyebrows. We haven't seen eyebrows that pointy since I drew Poseidon. Let's give her some eyes. Now here's one of the things I think is a real good signifier for how Nemesis should look. Her mother is the embodiment of night. We spoke in a previous episode about what Uranus, the sky, would look like. And I actually made the distinction, well, he would have stars in him because he was the night sky. But I feel like Nyx would look like the absence of stars. She's pitch black. And in much the same way that I had Kronos the Titan, he carries the starry eyes of Uranus, his dad, and then Zeus does from Kronos and such, she should have eyes that are just pitch black, not a sparkle in them. You can't tell if she's looking at you or looking to the side or rolling her eyes up in her head. She might be cross-eyed or wall-eyed. We don't know. I picture her having kind of thin features. I don't know why. Just, I feel like a lot of my Olympians characters have kind of squarish, very heroic heads. I think she's going to be a little bit thinner. A little bit more drawn out. So there we have a face so far. She's looking a bit meaner than I'd like, honestly. But I guess that's what happens. You have just pure black eyes and main things. So I actually want to make her smile a little bit. Figure she would favor darker lipstick. Let's give her smiling a little bit more to one side. If I were to draw this again, I'd make her eyes a little bit less close together. She looks a little bit like her eyes are too close together, but that's okay. Good cheekbones. Nice chin. Here's her ears. Now hair. What do we think her hair would look like? If you know, and I've talked about previous episodes, how I design a goddess or god or whomever, I look for actual physical written descriptions first. That's actually the most important thing for me to find. If I could find a written description what the goddess or god looks like. There really wasn't anything I could uncover for her. There's a few mentions of certain attributes she has, and I could glean a little bit from art. Some of a lot of the vase paintings I found of her, she just has kind of like hair, just like it's even like tied up. I feel like I want to give her a little bit of panache, a little bit of style. I don't want to just give her like her hair in a bun. I feel like I want her to have long, straight, black hair. Now, before you ask, no, I'm not going to color that in because that's a lot of marker. Let's do a little bit. Now, black, again, because she is the daughter of Nyx. And I like it. The gods don't have genetics the way we do, but I think it would make some sense for her to carry some of the attributes for her mom. So there's her face. Okay, that's something to work with. I'm going to tweak that in the next drawing. Now, I mentioned that there's some attributes of her and that there is some hints. One of the things I found mentioned many places, though I couldn't actually find an original text that has it, so file it under a little bit. They mentioned she has wings, which is kind of cool. You know, there's a few other gods we could say with wings. Eros has wings. Iris has wings. She has the wings to fly about quickly because she has so much revenge to give, which is kind of a fascinating idea. And even Hermes, he has the winged feet in his helmet because he has to get places super quickly too because he's got a million different jobs. One of her brothers is Morpheus, the god of sleep. He also has wings. So this all makes sense to me for wings. And because I was reading for original sources, I was actually happy to learn I couldn't find any instances where they said what sort of wings they are. Now, I'm pretty sure it's just bird wings, right? But I'm like, okay, so let's keep with the nighttime idea. What is a creature that flies at night? I could do owls. She maybe has brown wings, but I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if she had bat wings? Like, I mean, what creature more symbolizes the night than a bat, right? So I'm going to draw, here's her full body. Somebody likes the idea of bat wings. I'm going to draw her, now this time, with her eyes a little bit more like the way I would picture her. And maybe her face, too. Because that first drawing, I didn't love, really honestly. And this is the thing. When I'm designing a character for real, like if I really was going to put her in a book, this would be my start. I would draw her at least 100 times more until I really figured out all the details. One thing I want to do is I want to make her a little bit less cruel looking. Because she is often featured with good fortune. And her whole thing is she doesn't take revenge on you unless, honestly, you deserve it. Or you do something like super in defiance of the gods. But she's not like cruel for the sake of it. She acts as she's a force to keep things balanced, right? So I want to give her actually like a smile. She still has a very dark aspect. And let's make her hair kind of flowing out because she is definitely going to be airborne here. A couple other symbols of her. So we know all the gods, goddesses, they all tend to have symbols of different varieties, like the caduceus or the lightning bolt or a peacock or whatever. Her sacred animal is the goose, which I'm like, we're not going to draw a goose. That's just weird. But she has the scale is one of her symbols. Just like, and in some instances, a sword. Which is exactly like Lady Justice. I don't know if you know Lady Justice. Lady Justice is an allegorical figure. It actually has its roots in ancient Greek and ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But you still see it like in courtrooms to this day. And it's a woman, and she's leaning on a sword, and she's holding up a scale, and she's blindfolded because justice is blind. Isn't that nice? Now, I don't think she's blind, but it's very interesting that she has that same idea, which goes into the idea that she's not evil, right? She's trying to justify things out. But the sword, I'm like, okay, I don't want her to be just Lady Justice with her blindfold off. But then I read one of the other things that she has, one of her other symbols, is a whip. And I'm like, okay, now we're talking. Now we're giving her some individuality. And like a sword is like, that's a sword of revenge. You hit someone with a sword, that's very final. Like they're dead. But a whip, that could just be something that causes pain. And that's kind of like scary, right? That's a little bit more intense. So I'm like, she has a whip and she has a scale. So I'm gonna make her holding up with one hand. Let's give her black nails. She and Persephone shop at the same place. I don't know what's gonna be on the scale. But it's something she's measuring out, and it's terms of justice. There's her arm. And in this hand, I'm going to give her her whip. Now, I'm saying whip, but one of the words I read for it was a scourge. And a scourge is a whip that has like spikes on it. And that just seems like cooler again. She's pretty dark. She's pretty dark. I'm digging this so far. I gotta say. I'm probably gonna draw some more pictures of her later. So here's her hand up. Her robes, I'm very tempted to say she has black robes, but I feel like that's a little bit much. She's getting really heavily black. So let's just say she has like maybe like a deep blue. Or we'll leave it open. Maybe she's like Hera, like her colors change. But I do feel like she wears robes as opposed to, say, armor. Even though she is a somewhat active goddess, the artwork I could find of her, she dressed pretty normal. And I feel like it would be something noteworthy. Like, when you draw hair, I mean, when you talk about Athena, you mentioned that she's wearing plate mail. You definitely do. Like, she's definitely wearing armor. Nobody mentions it in her, so for me, that's a sign she's not wearing it. I like that she has maybe a couple of strands floating loose. Now, unfortunately, I did draw this a little bit bigger than what I've liked. So I'm going to, now that we've established this, we're going to do one more picture where I get to draw her with her wings. And again, like I said, this is the sort of thing I would do a lot, where I just draw them multiple times until I get what I really like. I'm going for a different hair to do this time too. Parting her hair a little bit more on the side, but the hair is getting wilder and wilder, which I like, because I don't think that the goddess of revenge is going to spend a lot of time, like, you know, combing her hair. She's bringing the whip down like a huge crack. That's a terrible sound effect, and I don't know why I said that. Let's still make her holding up the scale in the air, though. I like that. Draw a little bit more of her robes, maybe. Maybe make the skirt kind of echoing, like the skirt comes up in slices, like little bits, just like kind of like the way, like, she's got the whip hanging off, her hair is coming apart, the scourge, oh, let's make it a scourge. Give her a little bit of a flowing aspect. I'm going to say this. I think that some of my, this is a little detail that most people aren't going to notice, but I do. A lot of times when I'm drawing an older god or goddess, I draw them barefoot. The exception being like Hera, she wears sandals because she actually, one of her cult titles is Silver Sandaled Hera. I think I draw Demeter with sandals most of the time. No, I think she's barefoot. Kind of the first generation, I make them barefoot because they're like before shoes. They don't need shoes anyway. She's an old goddess too. She's barefoot. Let's give her a hint of toenails. Now let's give her some bat wings. Now really, these aren't quite bat wings because bat wings would actually be attached to her hands. You know, bats have like their fingers elongate and they become like, that's cool looking, but like that also limits her ability to hold a scale and to hold a whip. So she has like kind of bat looking wings that extend out of her back. So there, that's my rough design for Nemesis. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with this so far. Now, this is just a beginning, and this is stuff that, like, this is just, I purposely didn't draw anything before here. This is just some ideas I had in my head, just being like, just certain ideas as I did research on. I'm like, okay, a really cool thing about her that I didn't put in here because it would have taken too long to draw. One of the ways she got around is she drove a chariot pulled by griffins. Which is like, what? I mean, okay, like Apollo, it's nice, you're a little chariot drawn by swans. But this is griffins. Like, it's like lion eagles. That's pretty cool. So I think, and that was one of the things that gave me a hint, that she probably goes for the fright. So I went for her appearance to be a little bit on the creepy side. She kind of looks like some sort of succubus or demon. And that's okay. This is before there were such concepts as that. So maybe this is what she really looked like, and that's where people got those ideas from. I don't know. So thank you very much for tuning in for that. Maybe I'll do some more drawings. If I do a more finished version of her, I'll be sure to post it on my social media. I'm just going to throw out, this is the point of the episode where I'll take some Q&A. It normally takes a few seconds for that to start generating, so I'll just keep talking a little bit while that happens. Maybe I just want to... Yeah, so I figure like if I'm going to color her in, her dress is going to be like a midnight blue, like a shimmery. Maybe, no, I was supposed to say maybe it has stars in. That's too much Uranus's bag. But like sequindy or something. Like she's wearing like a ball gown or something. But the wings, like I feel like the wings would be like cool and black. And the wings, you know, it's kind of like my main man. Well, he's not my main man. My main monster, Typhon, with his giant black wings that stretch out across the universe. Pretty cool concept, I gotta say. I wish there were more stories about her. I should mention one place that she does appear, actually, not actual straight up myths, but in a lot of plays, you'll have her be a character. I talk a lot about like Aeschylus, because I've mentioned Prometheus, and I talk about Prometheus Bound. And like, for instance, to use that, when Hephaestus is binding Prometheus to the mountain, he's accompanied by these two kind of allegorical figures. They're some sort of divine things, maybe. They're Kratos and Ba, not Kratos from the War of God. That's, you can't kill a god. That whole series is wrong. But Kratos and Ba just means strength and force. And it's like literally because Hephaestus used strength and force to bind this titan to the mountain. They needed him to talk to someone, so they personified these. So you will see Nemesis sometimes on a play where the gods are talking about someone needing to be punished. She would make appearances there, so she does appear. So we do have some questions. Who is her father? So in Hesiod, and Hesiod is my main source, he trumps everyone else. She's just born from her mother, which is cool. That's happened a few times where one god kind of, Uranos, like literally the first god is Gaia, and then Uranos is generated. So it's not, especially in the early generations, it's not uncommon for there to be just one parent, because there wasn't just a lot of gods around. There is a version of the story where Erebus, which is part of Tartarus, is her father. I chose in Olympians not to personify Erebus. It was just kind of, is it a place or is it a being? I know Rick Riordan did it, that it was kind of both, and it was very clever the way he did it, but you have to make a significant departure from the myth that I didn't want to do anything like that. So I just kind of ignored that, because also Hesiod just says it's Nyx. Let's see. Would Nemesis and Persephone be friends? Okay. I tend to like to think of Persephone as nice, but I also kind of decide that she's not bad either. I feel like they would be friends. And remember, the thing about Persephone is, even though she's the goddess of the spring and she has these very delightful aspects of her, she brings feeling to Hades' world in a way that he never had. She did name herself, and her name does mean the bringer of destruction. And there's a few myths where you could see she's got a dark side. So I think that, I feel like they would be friends. I feel like they would go shopping at Hot Topic together, and they'd fight over the last black lipstick. Let's see. Nora would like to know what or who Nemesis whips. Well, Nora, I would guess she would whip people who had transgressed in some way against either the gods or against other people. So, like I said up in the beginning, her whole job is meting out punishments to people who do things that are wrong and get away with it. So I think she probably, the whip, somebody who's done some horrible crimes that they got away with. And so, this is the start. She can do stuff that's more creative, make you fall in love with yourself and, you waste away and die and eventually become a flower, like Narcissus. Or she could just beat you with a whip, which it's got little nails in it. And she's also a goddess, so I bet you she could make it hurt a lot more than just a person. So yeah, she whips the people who are bad. Who is Jay father? I think that's maybe a typo, and I think that's probably asking about who her father is. Possibly Erebus. Let's just say she was made by Nyx. Are Eris and Nemesis friends? Do they work together? And will some come without someone praying for her to come? Oh, cool. Okay. So are Nemesis and Eris friends? Yeah, they're more than that. They're family. They're actually related. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But they're close blood relations. So they're not just friends, they're family. So you know how strict that bond is. In fact, I was really, one of the things that influenced my appearance of her is I wanted her to resemble Eris in some way. The flowing coats, I realized that comes from that. The black hair, I explained why, but that's also why Eris has black hair, because of the Nyx connection. We'll talk more about this, not tomorrow, on Wednesday. And will they come without someone praying for her to come? Yes, baby. I don't think people prayed for Eris to come ever. I think Eris, because Eris, for those of you who don't know, Eris was the goddess of causing trouble, right? I think you just generally hoped Eris wouldn't come no matter what. Because she's kind of indiscriminate in who she causes trouble for. She's not like a divine protector, a balancer of justice, of the cosmic scales. Eris is just there. She's like the wrench you throw in the works. She's just there to gum up stuff. So nobody ever prays for Eris. And she only comes when you don't call for her, because that's the only way she'd ever come. I mean, read Aphrodite to see Eris's biggest thing where she does that. As far as Nemesis, well, mythologically, I did have some trouble finding instances where she was really an active participant. Like I said, she's kind of just this in-between character. Would she come without someone praying? I prefer to think yes. Because she is often partnered with Tiki, the goddess of fortune, good fortune. And I feel like it's not super well established. They kind of fit in a certain niche as the way the Fates do, the Morae, where like they kind of like spend their time watching over the mortal world. And I think the idea of Nemesis was that even if somebody wasn't aware you did something wrong, because that's the thing, if you get away with it, that means nobody knows, right? The fear that Nemesis was out there to make you pay for the things you did wrong was hopefully enough to keep you from being a horrible person. So yeah, you might pray for her, and I think a lot of people did, but you also, as a person, say like, I'm going to go rob the bank and no one will ever know. I'm like not going to rob the bank because I'm like, oh, but Nemesis will know and that whip looks painful. So let's see. Did the fear of Nemesis have a major effect on Greek society? I don't know that I'm equipped to speak about that. It's hard to, I don't know that really anybody is. That might be something you'd have to spend your whole life researching just from like little bits. Because so much of like Greek society, especially the quotidian day-to-day Greek society, we know bits, but like, you know, it's not like Joe Farmer wrote down his feelings about things. We know although there's an enormous amount of material mythologically that survives just from the Greeks, especially compared to other cultures, there's still so much we don't know. I think she probably played a pretty important part. It's interesting to see how her Roman equivalent seems to have played more of a public part in cult. So her name in Rome was, I think it was like Invidia or something. And the same way Tiki's Roman name was kind of like Fortuna. You'll see them actually evoked a lot. I think the Romans kind of brought that up more in cult, but they also made it maybe more of a like a celebration thing. Whereas I feel like in the Greek, like if you look at like the spots where she was worshipped, like Nemesis, where there was like temples to her, there wasn't a lot. Again, that idea, you probably don't want to bring too much attention to you from her. Because here's the thing, I mean, honestly, everyone listening here today, everyone you could see, look around you, we've all done one or two things we're probably like, dodge that one. But the whole idea of this goddess is she makes you pay for those things that you did. So you're kind of like, if you're like, say like you're an ancient Greek person, you want to go into the priesthood and like worship a deity, you're probably not going to go for the goddess of revenge unless you feel like a really strong sense of revenge, justice, and you want to make sure people pay. You know who would worship? Batman. Like this is like oh my gosh, the Batwings, of course. This is like Batman's dude. He like dudette. He'd be like, yes, the guilty must pay, and I'm sad, and I live in a cave. Bats are my only friends, and so forth and so on. Where would Nemesis have lived? Olympus, the underworld, somewhere else? Oh, that's a great question. Man, where is it? There is one of her titles was a region of Greece because she was thought to live in this one, or at least originate in this one area. It was like Ramustria or something. I should look that up real quick. But so I think she did actually, there was actually a spot where she was maybe viewed as being originating from and maybe having, because she did have a handful of temples. She wasn't completely devoted to temples. There were people who like, you know, went to her temple and made sacrifices and stuff. I don't think she lived in Olympus, but I could be wrong. I don't think Tiki did either. I feel like they were like kind of, I think they were, I'm going to say somewhere else. The same way like that, you know, you might see the Morae on Olympus, but I don't really think they live there. I feel like almost like, I'm going to get into like some serious comic book geeky stuff. Maybe like a weird pocket dimension they're in where they're kind of like, you know, here's Olympus, which is one dimension. Here's Earth is another dimension. There's this little pocket dimension where they appear and do horrible things. It seems like the embodiments of justice and ballast and revenge are all female goddesses. Why do you think that is? Oh, wow. That is interesting, right? I wonder why. My first thought is, okay, I'll use the oft trotted out Ares Athena equivalent. Athena is the smart god. Ares is kind of the dumb god. I don't want to be, this is kind of, I'm going to say this is possibly sexist against either sex. Women tend to have a more nuanced view of things, whereas men tend to act in a very direct fashion. So perhaps the idea of justice is best meted out by someone who has more of an emotional capacity to sense more of it. Does that make sense? It's not just that, though. I could think of some instances, like the triumvirate of kings who judge you in the afterlife. They're actually all men. So it's not like it's entirely like the female thing. But you're right. There is this kind of... We see this, like these characters where they become almost echoes of each other, right? Where like you have this idea where like, you know, she's very related to Tiki, and then like there's all these different types of characters that are very similar. It might also be, it was just... No, I don't know. I guess that's my idea. That's a good question. That's a tricky question. I hope I answered it in a way that was pretty good. Do we have any other questions today? I think we might be set then. Okay. Oh, somebody added moth wings for her. You know, that would have been pretty cool. I actually was thinking like butterflies. I didn't think moth, but that would have been cool. How many griffins does it take to pull her chariot? Wow. So I've had a couple of instances where I got to draw griffins for Olympians. And I kind of decided a griffin is probably about the size of a lion. Big lion, right? I've seen depictions of griffins where they're enormous, but I'm like, no, it's a mixture of an eagle and a lion. So it's got to produce enough lift to carry a lion. So it's got pretty big wings, right? Lions weigh think like a full-grown African lion weighs about 500, 600 pounds, maybe a little bit less, maybe like 400 pounds. So then it's got to have enough wing lift to carry the lion and extra. So it's a chariot. Let's assume the chariot's made of a godly substance. It's actually quite light, maybe balsa wood, but like super tough. And then there's she herself, who has wings, but I think the whole reason she has the griffin chariot is she doesn't want to fly everywhere. Like the same way like I have legs, but you know, I would sometimes ride a horse or a car or something. So I'm going to say it's quite a bit. I'm going to say, how many does Santa Claus have? He has like what, 12? Let's say 12 griffins. How about that, Santa Claus? Like, people would be so much less excited for Christmas. Like, oh, what's happening? What's that sound on the roof? It's like a horrible gnashing of beaks and claws, and it's like crawling with griffins. It's probably not 12. You know what? It's not 12 because I would never want to draw 12. Let's say 4, because 4 is about as many griffins as I want to have to draw repeatedly. Who would win in a fight, Nemesis or Athena? Ooh. Well, first we'd have to assume why they're fighting, right? Like... Because Nemesis, I don't think would engage willy-nilly in combat unless she felt there was something she had to avenge. And Athena wouldn't engage in combat unless she was pretty sure she could win. Because Athena's all about strategy and skill. I'm normally tempted to say Olympians trump all. That an Olympian could just beat anybody. But there is, and we'll see tomorrow, because I mentioned up front, there's that little bit about Nyx, how she's got like this, she makes even Zeus freaked out. There is this kind of interesting power going there. I think ultimately Athena would probably win. I would love to know the myth that would lead these two to fight. Because it would mean, like, I just thought of how it could happen. So, in the book Ares, which, you know, retells part of the Iliad, the Trojan War, Ares is tricked several times by Athena. Like, he's a disagreeable person. He's got a lot of big faults, but Athena really is kind of the one who's being the bad guy in that story to him. She turns invisible and has Diomedes stab him. She tricks him into getting off the battlefield at parts. Like, they're kind of like being a little bit mean to him. So maybe Ares gets wind of that. Ares has a very close relationship with Eris. Eris is family to Nemesis. He might be like, I feel like Athena needs to pay. And he does something, and then maybe they have like some sort of crazy, I don't know what sort of fight would it be. I feel like she wouldn't engage in, you know what? she's smart enough not like, I'm not going to fight the god of war. That seems dumb. Like, I'm going to lose. She might take some sort of clever revenge. And if we know anything about the way that the gods take revenge on each other, she'd probably take revenge on like one of the heroes that Athena collects, as opposed to Athena herself, rather than a direct fight. Because, yeah, I feel like Athena would, I mean, she's an Olympian. She probably would just stomp her. Somebody liked that there was a dozen to pull it. Yeah, let's say officially a dozen, but if I ever decide to draw her pulling the chariot, I'm only going to draw 4, maybe even 2. Here's the thing about winged chariots, right? Like the animals can't fly 2 and 2 because their wingspans have to be enormous, right? So the griffins have to be in single lines. So 12 would be a pretty long thing. Like, it would be like it would look kind of like, this is going to be a really bad picture because I'm definitely not drawing 12 griffins. But like, here's her chariot. There's her hair, there's her wings. Her dress is flowing, right? And so then there'd be like a griffin, and a griffin, and a griffin, and a griffin, and so forth. It would be like this weird long, like, it looked like a yo-yo flying through the air or something, like this long string with like a little thing hanging up the back. So that's maybe a little unwieldy. But you can't have them next to each other because their wingspan's got to be like 18 foot or something to make a lion fly. So it would have to be a super wide chariot. I don't know. It's one of those things that's pretty tricky. Probably works better only in 2 dimensions. So, okay, I think that's it for today. Looks like we're just about done with questions, and that's okay. So, I want to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope everybody's having a great day. I know it's kind of crazy out there. I'm actually myself. I'm going to put on a mask and go food shopping, and it's like in the middle of a typhoon outside, so wish me luck. I will not be here tomorrow. But please join me again on Wednesday when I'm here again at 3 p.m. I'm going to be designing live for you here. Just like how we did today with Nemesis, I'm going to be designing Nix, her mom. You can catch old episodes, including this one. If you missed parts of this, you can catch it on my YouTube channel, George Olympians. Oh, wait. Sorry, unprofessional again. I'm going to get a sign to pass. Oh, I don't have the signs. Well, you know the deal. Send the if you draw any pictures, if you draw your own version of Nemesis or want to work off some of mine, help me refine it. You can send it to georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com, and I can show that next episode. And yeah, thank you all, and I'll see you guys all on Wednesday. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in.